Yes, it's another bright day. It's not only the 4th of July here in the United States or 4th of July weekend, but it's going to be another beautiful weekend wherever you are, especially for those of you out there who are our Ketron fans. So, just to do a very quick sound check, how does the sound out there? I'm looking at the people on YouTube, looking at the people on Facebook, giving a shout out and saying hi, good afternoon. It's a lovely Friday afternoon here on the East Coast in the United States. Hopefully it's a lovely Friday afternoon or evening or night, wherever you are watching this presentation. So we're back again with our online tutorials and online workshops. And there has been a huge demand or request for a particular function which is found exclusively on the SD9, SD60, and SD90. And that's none other than the massive, explosive, humongous LaunchPad. Or is it that big? Well, today we're going to break it down. We're going to actually talk about different elements and how you can actually use this feature to your advantage. So without much ado, what you heard me playing there in the beginning was actually a demonstration using this LaunchPad feature, okay? Oh, Ketron SD90. Yes, hello, AJ, all is good with the audio. Thank you, thank you. Again, you can set everything up the way you want in the studio, but the real sound, it's what you guys tell us it is, right? So we always have to use a reference, which is your ears out there. Sounds good to us in here, but it's a question of how does it sound when it goes through all the technology and all the pipelines and what have you. How does it sound out there? So people on YouTube are saying it's good. Let's see what the folks are saying on Facebook. Probably the same thing as well, even though I'm made to understand that there is a slight delay on Facebook. Bill Noti says it's good also on Facebook. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so let me turn off the phone. Well, not turn it off, but put it on silent so we can have those calls coming in a little bit later on. I'm going to put this right here in the corner, okay? Again, please keep your calls until later on in the program when we've amassed enough information, and then we can talk over even the questions as well. No delay. Yes, we got that issue all fixed up with Facebook as well. So I'm glad it's actually working out as planned. So, without much ado, what exactly is the LaunchPad on the Ketron SD90, SD60, and SD9 keyboards? So again, I'm going to try and explain this a little bit differently because obviously the videos that we put on YouTube we've been informed that those are a little bit more complicated. So let us, by using live examples or live demonstrations, in other words, how would you use this feature for a live setting, right? And that's going to pretty much help, when you see it being used for a particular feature per se. So without much ado, I'm going to start off with the basic one that everybody has been asking questions about, right? So with the LaunchPad feature, how do I get a style? How do I get a style component into the LaunchPad? So again, like I said before, a LaunchPad is like your sequencer, okay? It's a merger between having a sequencer where you sequence everything ahead of time, and then when you get to the show, you're playing along with the sequence, right? Or the style engine, and the style engine is like a semi-sequencer because even though it's a sequences, but it's partial sequencing. And when you perform on the keyboard, you perform and you control those sequences. That's pretty much what a style is in a nutshell, right? But they each have their limitations, right? When you are dealing with a style, because you are performing and changing those parts in real time, it means that certain songs you're going to lose certain dynamics for the music because there's certain songs, for example, where the bass might be playing something totally different in terms of chord references from what the guitar is playing or what the strings are playing. And now when you sequence, because each track is independent and they're all individual, the bass can do whatever it wants to do, the guitar can do whatever it wants to do, and you can make your music that way. But with the style engine, all the tracks are pretty much following the chord progressions that you're putting in real time. And so that's why the style engine has that's where it has its weaknesses. Of course, its strength, on the other hand, is that you can take a style and play pretty much anything you want. And because you're not following a sequence, it means that when you're performing on the stage, for an example, and let's say people are getting up towards the end of a song, you can always go back to the chorus, or you can always improvise, right? So that's where the strength of the style engine comes into play. The sequencer, the strength is that you get authentic music. It's very, very close to the real deal, but you are now limited as to how you perform it, for example. Now, some people can say, well, you can use markers. That's true. But even with marker points, when you jump from different parts of the song, you are still following the song. And that, to some extent, takes away the live input that you, the musician, have when it comes to playing music. So the LaunchPad has taken the advantages of the sequencer and the advantages of the style engine and brought them all together. Oh, hello from Brazil. Rodrito, thank you. Thank you very much as well. So I am seeing some of the comments coming in here, and we are building up our audience, but I figured I would take a few minutes to first of all explain what we're about to get into, because only when you know, Donnie, oh, there you are. Donnie, there you are, I can see you now. Only when you know these differences, then will this begin to make sense. Otherwise, whatever I'm about to explain right now will just be gibberish, right? So, without much ado, let's dive into the LaunchPad. Now, I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to go into my LaunchPad. Let me take you to the screen so you can see exactly what it is that I'm seeing over here on the screen. So that is my regular style screen right there, okay? As you can notice, if I press my LaunchPad button, it brings me into whatever pad I have loaded in, which I had in this case. Now, on the bottom, you see where it says open, and you see new, okay? If you touch the open button, it gives you a list of existing LaunchPad projects. Now, for those of you who use DAWs, look at this as your different, projects, different songs, for example. When you load a project, what does it do? It loads all the relevant material associated with that project. So the LSX files you're seeing right now, these are all my projects, which you can name, of course, Clean Up Woman and what have you. And the minute I pick one to load, for example, if I go in here and I, click on Evergreen and I touch it on the screen, watch what happens. It loads up all the different parts that were used for that particular song, right? So you can see the pads. If you look at the screen, I'm going to go back and show you the top of the screen so you can see what I'm looking at right here. See? So you have different scenes, okay? So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scenes. Now, you load up, the default is scene number 1. Inside scene number 1 for this particular project that we just loaded, you have tracks. Look at these as tracks. These are pads, but they're actually tracks. Now, I know for the most part when people talk about pads, they're used to pads which have been defined or predefined by other manufacturers, where you have a physical pad on the instrument, and you touch that pad and it triggers whatever content is in the pad, right? So for an example, you can load the content and you hit pad number 1 and you get, let's say, bells or whatever, or you hit pad number 2 and you get a piano riff, okay? These have already been predefined. Now, the great thing about the pads on this instrument is you can choose to have predefined content, right? You can also choose to have live content. In other words, the live content follows your playing. So depending on how you play, the content of the pad will also change and adjust to follow what it is that you're playing. And the third option is to have an audio pad. You can have 3 audio pads per scene. So what does that mean? It means that when I go in here, for example, and I look at this particular scene, I have 2 audio pads in this example. The top, first row, second one, and the second row, the fourth one. And it says wave, right? So I'm playing along with those audio pads. So that's the third option. So again, this may sound like it's rocket science, but when I go into the demonstration, then it begins to make more sense. So let's start with the pressing question that we had. A lot of people were asking, well, how do I get a style into the LaunchPad? So that's going to be an easy start. So we start off with our panel like this. I have a style here, okay? So in this example, I'm going to go pick, let's see, I'm going to go and look for a nice, let me see if I can pick something that is a little bit upbeat. Dance lounge. No, I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to go to ballad. Let's see, 16 ballad 4. No. See, again, this is what you're trying at home, right? There we go. That sounds better. Okay. And I'll tell you exactly why I'm doing this later on. So you pick your style, okay? So the first thing you want to do, this is, again, how do you use the style, an entire style? How do you use that within a LaunchPad? That's what we're about to do right now. So the first scenario of using a LaunchPad is to be able to bring in the style parts or the style elements into the launch part. And what exactly are the style elements? When you go into the style, if I get out here and I go into my view screen, turn off the pianist there for a second, go home. If I get in here and go into, turn off that drum restyle, I was doing something else. And we're going to talk about that drum restyle in a second, okay? That's going to be our next conversation. So I go into style here, and I'm going to go into view. These are my style parts, right? You have a drummer. You actually have two drummers. You have a bass track, and you have the chord 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are all the melodic parts of the style. So you have 8 tracks. You have a live guitar, which is track number 9 as well. That's 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 with the bass player, okay? So how do you get all of this content into the LaunchPad in real time? Simple. You pick your style, all right? You hit start, you start to play the style. And while the style is performing, while the style is playing, you press the LaunchPad button. Now you're gonna see this screen over here. So let's zoom into the screen so you can see exactly what it's telling us. If you notice, right now, my screen is telling me, hey, listen, I want to import all these parts into the style. So for scene 1 through 4, I'm going to import arranger A, B, C, and D. These are all going to come over. Now for scene 5 and scene 6, I only have 6 scenes, right? So, but I have 3 intros and 3 endings. So somehow something has to give. So for scene 5, the keyboard is asking you, do you want to bring in intro 1 or intro 2 or intro 3? For the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to bring in intro number 3. And for ending, I'm going to bring in ending number 3. That's the longer one, right? And then I'm going to touch yes on the screen. So as soon as I touch the yes on the screen, now you're going to see what it does. Real quick, it stops playing the style and it brings everything into my LaunchPad. So now I am in the LaunchPad environment. As you can see, the screen changed. So if I zoom back into the screen just to show you what the screen now looks like, that's what your screen should look like. And if I press the start button, okay, this is it right here. So if you notice, for the most part, I'm actually able to now play as if I'm playing a style, okay? So if I get out of here, just to show you what it is I'm doing, so you can see, again, watch this. That's my style, okay? So far, nothing has changed, okay? There's no difference so far now between what I'm doing now and what I would have done if I was in the style environment. All I have done is I have just brought all my style parts into my LaunchPad. So how are the parts defined? Okay, so scene 1 is now arranger A, right? So if I go to scene 1, that's going to be arranger A of my style, okay? If I go to scene 2 over there, if I touch that, that's going to be what? Guess, take a guess. What do you guys think is going to be? That's correct. Scene 2 is going to be arranger B. Hey, hi, Linda. Linda has just joined us after a hot cup of coffee on this hot July 3rd. Hi, Linda. Nice to see you again. That's one of our famous customers over, I believe, Midwest. Linda, you're West, right? If I'm mistaken, please correct me. But she has the SD90, and she does good things with that machine. Again, these products in the right hands become the right tools for the right musicians, right? So, in scene number 2, I now have arranger B, okay? In scene number 3, I have arranger C. So you can see the arranger buttons are changing. And in scene number 4, I have arranger D. So again, nothing has really changed per se. I still have my style. I can play the style. I can still play my fills. I can still press my brakes. I can go to scene 3, which is arranger C. Okay? So far, nothing has changed indeed. So why the LaunchPad? what more can I do to this style? Well, this is now the beginning of how you begin to build stuff within the LaunchPad, which you cannot necessarily do on the style. So I was right, Linda. It is West Coast. Okay, so if you notice right now, I have all my scene parts, and you see the scenes are lit up because there's content in all these scenes. If it wasn't like this, if it's gray, then that means that you don't have content in that particular scene. So right now it's white, so you see I have content in those scenes. So if you notice, even though I brought in all my style parts into the scene, I have 3 free pads in the bottom where it says free to add stuff. Now, what can I add to this particular pad? So mind you, I am in scene 1 right now. I just brought my style in, okay, the 16-beat style, from the arranger to the actual LaunchPad environment, because this is where I'm now trying to build my music. This is where I'm going to stand out from anybody else who has a Ketron SD9, because I'm going to get creative, and I'm now going to get into the sequencing environment, okay? So I brought the style over. Now I want to spice it up. I want to make that style sound unique and customize it for a particular song per se. So exactly what do I have to do? So let's get back into the keyboard. So I have it in here right now. I got my 3 empty pads. So in this particular scenario, I can choose to say, in the first available free pad, I want to add, let's say, a brass section or a horn or strings or whatever I want to add. Again, all I have to do is simply touch and hold that for 2 seconds, and you see it turns red. And now it's going to be in the edit mode. So what the machine is asking me in a nutshell is, hey, listen, what do you want to add into this particular pad, okay? Remember I told you when you're dealing with other other manufacturers, the pads are like trigger devices to trigger existing content. You press the pad and you get jingle bells, or you press the pad, you get a wave file, or you get something else. In this case, you touch the pad, you can get pre-recorded material, or you can also create your own material to put in that particular pad, right? So right now I'm in the edit mode, I want to add something. So on the right side of my screen right here, it gives you categories of what you can add. So if I zoom into that, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about right there. I can add an audio drum, I can add a bass track, I can add a piano, a live guitar, a wave, orchestral. So what are all of these? So for the factory, if you look at the audio, drum, bass, guitar, the first column, right? Audio, drum, bass, guitar, orchestral. Those are all factory content that you can add. You look at the second column, the groove kit, piano, live guitar. Those, again, are factory content. Now, when you look at the wave and the user, that is your content, and also a combination of factory stuff. So if I were to go in right now and say, listen, I want to add a piano, let's just say, I'm going to touch the piano category, and the screen now displays what kind of piano rhythms or what kind of piano notes do you want to add. Again, I can add from a ballad pop category, I can add from an R&B, funk, or dance or Latin. To make this interesting, I'm going to choose Latin categories. I'm going to touch the Latin category real quick, and it opens up this. These are all the different piano riffs, for lack of a better terminology, that I can add to this particular pad. So let me pick something interesting. Let me pick merengue number 3, and I'm going to press enter, right? So if you notice on the back of the screen there, merengue number 3 just got added into that empty pad. So prior to this, the pad was empty, right? Right now, I have merengue number 3 in that particular pad. So if I press start, I can hear the merengue. Now, I can mute the other tracks. See, when it's red, it means it's on. It means it's on. If I touch it, I can turn them all off. So I can hear just what I added right now, which is this guy. Remember, that was empty before. Now I have this merengue piano. Okay, so before I had this without that on. I had this other stuff on. I had all of this. Again, for my style. Now with the piano. And now is where I start to get creative, okay? If I touch the volume tab right here, it opens up this screen where I can actually go in and be able to, in real time, customize the volume for each of those tracks. So if you look here, for an example, on the top of your screen, on the right-hand side, you see where it says volume. The first number is number 114. That's the volume for the first track right here. So the volume for this pad, or track, is number 114. The volume for the shaker, which is drum number 2, is number 17. The volume for the bass pad is 108. So in this case, I want to increase the volume for the merengue piano. So which one do you think it's going to be? Let me just have you guys take a guess. Which volume do I have to touch to be able to adjust the volume of the piano I just added not too long ago? Which one do you think it is? If you said the volume tab right here, which says 100 right now, you are correct. So number 6, right? Number 10, rather, sorry, number 10. So it's pad number 10. You see the volume has its number below it. So this is 114 in pad number 1. That's pad number 1 over there. So this is pad number 10, and the volume is at 100. I want to touch that volume, and I want to turn the wheel to make it louder. So now when I play this, that piano track I just added is going to sound louder. See? 126. Again, if I change the chord, the piano riff or melody is following me as I change the chord. Okay? Now, mind you, that scene 1 has the content that we just loaded from Arranger A, correct? So this is only applied to scene 1. If I go to scene 2, it doesn't have that piano because scene 2 is totally different. Scene 2 has Arranger B. The content from Arranger B is in scene 2. And if you notice, I have 3 empty pads there. And so too in scene 3 and scene 4, and in the intro and in the endings. Okay? So again, we're on scene 1. Just on scene 1 now, I have 12 pads I can toy around with or play around with. Okay? So let's continue. Let's continue. I think so far I haven't lost anybody. Nobody has raised a flag yet. So I think we're good to go. Now, okay, I added a piano track in that particular one. Let's get more creative. Let's see, I want to add something else. I'm going to touch the next pad that was empty. It goes into edit mode. And this time I want to add something interesting. I want to be able to go in there and let's say I want to add a wave, an actual audio file, okay? So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to touch wave. And it's going to open this up. So these are all my different folders where I have content. I have wave content in there, for example. So I can turn this wheel, all right, and I'm just going to select which wave file do I want to add, or where does that file reside. Now, just to remind you, it's a wave file, so it's audio, okay? It can be a guitar, it can be a voice, it can be another drum, it can be anything. You can add up to 3 wave files. So for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add, let's see, I'm going to turn this wheel around. I'm looking for, here we go, Mario 108. And in here, I'm going to look for a, let's see, a guitar. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say, let's see, let's just say for sake of demonstration purposes, right? So now I have that wave guitar in there. If I turn all these other tracks off, okay, again, just to make that stand out so you can hear what it is, okay, that's my guitar in there, all right? So if I bring in the other parts one by one, that's a little bit slow, I can speed it up. Now remember, whatever you change on this particular scene does not impact the other scenes. So if you notice, I changed the tempo in scene 1. If I go back to scene 2, it's going to be at the tempo it was at before. I have to actually go in there and then speed that one up as well and do the same thing for all the other ones. So every scene, in a way, is independent. And that should be the case because when you're dealing with live music, you may have different parts of the song, and some parts may be at different tempos, correct? So let me go back in what we're doing right now. I'm going to go back to scene 1. We added a live guitar in there, which sounds like this. That's an actual guitar, right? You can hear all the embellishments and hear the acoustic nature of that sound. Now, let's bring back the other tracks, okay? Again, remember, just so to recap for those who are just joining us, we took a style, a 16-beat style, we ported that style, we brought that style into the LaunchPad environment, and now we're building upon that style. We're adding different things to the style. So scene 1, which is Arranger A of the style, okay, we just added a merengue piano, and we also went ahead right now and added a wave track into that particular scene. Now I turned off all the different parts just to hear what I added, and so I'm going to go back now and turn everything back on to hear how everything sounds like when it's complete. It should be like this. Okay, so you see what I just did. We've added that guitar into that particular location. If I go to scene 2, I don't have the new piano and I don't have the guitar. Again, everything is independent, okay? So let's see, I think I just lost one of my cameras. Is that possible, and why? Let's see what happened. That was weird. Okay, we're back online. Yeah, that was a weird thing. Just saw the camera just turn off by itself. Technology, huh? So let's continue where we left off. Right, so we were talking about the different scenes. So in scene 1, I did those 2 things, okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to also add I guess we can, again, I just explained, how you can add different things. We're not going to do the same thing over and over again. So I just did all of this. So if I'm playing a song, again, I'm in the scene environment. I can turn on and off tracks as I see or as I see fit for my song. And I can do something like this. So if you notice, over here on the left side, it says wave or lower. I can control the volume of any audio or wave part that I've added into the track. But the right thing to do really is to go back into the volume tab over there and simply increase or lower the volume of that individual component, right? So I'm going to get this, lower that volume so it blends with the rest of the music. And I'm going to go ahead and touch my right-hand box there. I want to go in there and add a nice brass section. Here we go. Bring in that bass track. So you see, just before your very eyes, we just built up, and using the LaunchPad, again, we were able to take style parts and bring them into our LaunchPad environment. And why do we do that? Because naturally, okay, and I'm not going to save this, but naturally, if I go here to new, for example, this is a new pad. If I start my pad with nothing, my LaunchPad project with nothing, it's empty. If I hit start, I don't get anything. Okay, so what you would have to do if you want to sequence, as you would, let's say, to create everything from scratch, you would have to go pad by pad by pad and record that data. And you can do that, okay? So if I go to pad number 1, for an example, let's start with pad number 1. It goes into edit mode. Here on the bottom it says edit pad. I'm going to touch edit pad, and I'm going to record. You see, it changed to record a phrase. I can choose to record a particular phrase into that particular pad, right? So I can hit record, and I'm going to over here, and I want to, let's say, record a piano or something in record mode. All right, so hit stop. I can go ahead now, play that, go into the next pad, all right? And I want to record something else into that pad. So this is how I would do it if I was sequencing, all right? Doing that, everything from scratch. But why would you want to do that when you have so much content in the arranger? Normally what you want to do is you start with the content you have, right? You start with the content you have in the arranger, Bring that into the LaunchPad environment, right? And then you can now start tweaking and making, customizing and doing your own individual tracks. But you have a sketchboard. You have a board that you can actually start with to begin with, right? So if you saw what I was doing, for the most part, when I was playing, I was pretty much just playing, into that particular pad, for an example, or recording into that particular pad. And I can record 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, by 12 different tracks in real time. But again, like I said, you want to start off with the material that you have, especially when it comes to the audio material, the drums, for an example, the bass, for an example, the guitars. You want to use what you have already in the board, and then you can now incorporate and add and tweak, and create your own content from scratch, but at least you have some basic elemental or fundamental aspects of your music, the foundation, already in the project that you're working with and ready to go. So let me see if I have any questions on this first usage of the pad before we go on to the next section. Good job so far. Let's see. Is the wave part following the chords? Yes, it is. And we're going to actually talk about that and how you do that as well. So you can choose to have the audio element follow you, or you can choose to have the audio element play whatever is within the audio element. And the same applies for the MIDI as well. So let me, for the sake of saving on time, I'm not going to create anything from scratch. I'm going to go with an existing pad that I have here, right? So if you were with me at the beginning of this tutorial, I was working with another pad called, let's see if I can still find it, an R&B pad. And you should have this pad if you have this instrument already. This is a factory pad, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to spice it up and make it sound a little bit different. Let's see, I think it's called R&B Ballad. So those of you that have this machine, you can go ahead and you can load this particular pad right here. You see, right there, R&B Ballad, and then you touch it or you just press enter. And your machine or your screen should look similar to mine right here, like this. Okay, so now, again, now that we've gone through the explanation, I think these demonstrations or these demos that are in your machine will begin to make a little bit more sense, right? So now we have this on the screen. What exactly are these? If I turn these elements off, again, these are all your pads, okay? And I hit start, I don't hear anything. See? The counter is counting, but you don't hear anything. I can bring in that bass. I can bring in the piano, and I'm going to select my own piano that I want to use within this pad. So this is all within this LaunchPad. Now I can go ahead and simply play along, right? So I'm going to try and play along with this and make this sound, personal, like this. Pianist button so I can have the full piano. Bring in the drums. Sorry. Voice, rather. So, as you can see, in this example, I actually have a female voice in there, okay, as one of my wave parts. So really, before you use the pads or before you get into this environment, you have to have content. You have to have the different things you want to use, be that MIDI files, be that style, parts of the style engine, or be that wave files, right? You have to have those contents. And what you're doing is you're pretty much building that content and putting it together. What works with what. So if you look at this example right here, let me just bring you back in. Let's dive into this screen here real quick so you can see what I'm talking about, right? You see here, these are all contents. This is all different stuff. So this is MIDI, all right? The bass is MIDI. This piano over here is MIDI. Even the snap or the hand clap is MIDI. The only thing that's audio on this particular scene is the wave, is the vocal that you heard, the lady singing like this.
Sweaty, breathless.
Okay, that's an audio, that's a wave file. Now when I put everything together, it sounds like this. Now what happens if I go to the next scene? The next scene has its own set of pads. Here we go. Live guitar and drums. And it still has that vocal track. So that was in pad number 2. Sorry, scene number 2. If I go to scene number 3, of course, it has its own content as well, too. If I do this, and now I have a wah-wah, right? So notice in this particular scene, I have 3 wave, I have 3 audio tracks working. Let's zoom into that screen again real quick, and you can see that I have 3 audio elements. Now let me turn off the MIDI elements, right? These are the wave files that are playing with this particular track. Let me turn off the wah-wah. So in this case, even that Rode piano is a wave, okay? And in this particular scenario where you see the wave with the Rode piano, this Rode piano is playing independent of what I'm playing on the keyboard, okay? So if I go back to the keyboard right now, I'm not playing anything. That Rode piano is a wave file, okay? It's a particular wave file. Now, if I go to the bass, that's also, that's a MIDI bass that's actually playing from the keyboard itself. But this brings us to another interesting feature in the LaunchPad, auto chord, all right? Let me turn on the MIDI part of this. These are the MIDI parts right here. If I turn off the auto chord, did you hear that? So listen to that live guitar. It doesn't change, right? If I turn on the chord, now the guitar is following the chord progression, right? And that leads us into our next part, which is the auto chord part. So when you are performing, okay, when you are actually in that environment, you have the possibility or the capability to pre-record the chord progression. Now, in some manufacturers, they call that chord looping, or chord, it's called, I think it's called chord looper, where you can actually program the chord progression into a particular pad or into a particular arranger part and have the machine play that chord sequencer. What was I thinking? Chord looper, chord sequencing, yes. So for the Ketron, the chord sequencer, which is the terminology that many people out there are more famous with or more affiliated with, the chord sequencing is actually found in here. It's called auto chord. And so that gives you the capability to be able to program a chord progression. Again, remember, you're doing that for a particular scene. So every scene can have its own chord progression. So in this case, what happened? What do? We actually programmed the chord progression here, and you can see auto chord, and it says bar 2. So it's actually 2, well, I should say measure, but 2 measures long, right? So every 2 measures, it plays the same chord sequence. So there are 4 chords, and it's just going through those particular 4 chords over and over and over again, all right? So the live guitar is actually following the chord progression as well. Now, this brings me to another point. How can you use this in real time, all right? Let me do something that's very, very interesting here. So what I'm going to do in this particular scenario, okay, I'm going to go ahead and let's show you the top of the screen here so you can see the top of the panel. I'm going to turn this on right now, and I'm going to bring in all the other elements, all the different wave parts, okay? So this is a full track, everything playing correctly, right? Here we go. Turn it off, hear this. So, once the chord progression is off, the guitar is trying to follow whatever it is I'm playing on the keyboard in real time, right? Because the automatic, the chord loop, chord sequencer is actually off. So it transfers power back onto you. So if I'm playing now, pretty much it's following me now, okay? So what does that mean? If I turn off these tracks, let's just listen to that guitar. What you heard me play before was this. This is me controlling that guitar, right? In real time. Now, let me try something else. See? That was not in the song before, right? This chord was not in the song before. Neither was this chord in the song before, right? I have now taken over the machine. But the minute I turn on the chord arranger, then the machine goes back and starts to follow the chord progression that was built to it. So no matter what I'm doing now, it's not reading off of my chord progression. It's following the chord progression that was recorded. And now, how do you do that? That's very, very simple. Again, let's go back and I'm going to pick. This was a demonstration using one of the demonstrations that are inside the keyboard. Let's make our own and let's see how that's going to work. Okay, shall we? So I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to go to, again, we want to take a style and bring that style into the LaunchPad so we don't have to create everything over and over again from scratch. So I'm going to turn the LaunchPad off. I'm going to go into, let's go somewhere else. Let's go into the Latin category, okay? And I'm going to pick something, let's see, the Brazilian samba, right? There we go. Now, so how do you bring it into the LaunchPad? While it's playing, you press the LaunchPad button. Again, I'm going to pick intro 3 and ending 3 to be my pads, scene 5 and 6. And I'm going to touch yes. And it says exporting in progress. So now my style parts are here. Arranger A is in scene 1. Arranger B is in scene 2. Arranger C is in scene 3. Arranger D is in scene 4. I had a mental freeze there for a second. So now, when I hit start, this is all I hear. Okay? So let's go ahead and let's try and record our own progression. Again, I'm trying to show you how you can use the LaunchPad. And so I'm bringing in these terminologies like auto chord, recording different parts, recording different phrases, and building that up so you can see how the features are used and how they can benefit you when it comes to music creation. Now, creating music is different from performing somebody else's music, for example, even though there's a thin line there, because you can still take somebody else's song and then you can perfect or modify it the way you see fit, right? But when I refer to creation, I'm talking about creating from scratch, versus working with a song that already exists. So again, what do? We brought the style. In this case, it was the Brazilian samba. We brought that into the LaunchPad, so that way we have all our, some of our elements already filled up for us, and that prevents us from having to go there and record record this from scratch. For example, you don't want to go and record this in that track from scratch, and then go back and record this from scratch, and then go back and record this from scratch. Well, you can't record that. That's an audio. That's an audio guitar, right? So again, I have this just by simply bringing the elements in from the arranger view into my pad. Now watch this. We were talking about the auto chord, right? So we're going to talk about we're going to go back in now and try to see how to record a phrase or chord sequencer, like what they call it in other manufacturers. How do you record a sequence so that the machine can play by itself? And then that frees you up now to play solo or anything you want to play on the entire keyboard. That's one of the uses of the LaunchPad. So now we're into functionality number 2. The first thing we discussed was how we could bring the style parts into the LaunchPad. Why would you do that? Because you want to be able to build upon what's already there. You want to take the existing content and you want to add your own stuff like drums and bass and guitars, which are audio, or you want to go into the library that is provided for you by Ketron, and you want to be able to add, let's say, your orchestral, your strings, and so on and so forth. That was case 1. Case 2 now is, okay, I want to be able to play a sequence, but let's say I'm a guitar player, because remember, we also have the SD90, right? And a lot of this is easy for us because we're keyboard players. We're right there punching and touching stuff. A guitar player needs 2 hands to make a note, to make a sound. You and I, who are keyboard players, can just do this and touch and change stuff. They cannot. They're using their instrument to control this machine. So how would a guitar player benefit from this functionality? He can actually use the auto chord. Now, some of you are famous or accustomed with a software known as Band in the Box, and I think this is a very good feature that they have also in there, where you can go in and you can pre-record the chord sequencing. Let's say for the first 4 bars, I want to play C, the next 4 bars, I want to play B flat, and the next 4, I want to play F, and the next 4, I want to play G. And after that, I want to do that maybe like 2 times over, and then I want to go into another sequence. So that's what we're about to discuss now, which is a very major part of the LaunchPad, okay? So let's dive back in again. So we were talking about the auto chord. Now we have that style in here. That's my samba, okay? So let's go back and display the screen so that you can see exactly what I am seeing over here. So let's see. Now I have the auto chord off. I have bar 8. That's a long number of bars to record. I'm just going to set this here. I'm going to turn this and make it 4, okay? So if I go here to my screen, you see number of bars is 8. I'm going to make that 4, okay? And I want to record. So on the bottom there it says record chord. So when I touch that, as soon as I start playing, it's going to start recording, and it's going to record for 4 measures, okay? So in this case, if I don't record, this is what... So that's a nice groove, okay? What I was just doing there, I forgot to change the screen, but I was just showing you guys what I was doing. Again, I was just trying to groove to that particular style that I had in there, like this. We can go along and do this all day and all day and all day. But let's talk about what we came here to do today, right? So I like that groove. I want to be able to record that so that it frees me up to be able to play something else. So let's dive in again and see exactly what's going on the screen right here. So we're going to go into this guy, and so you can see the top panel here, what I was doing. I want to record that chord progression, okay? And I want it I want to record it for 4 measures, so for 4 measures, and then loop after that. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to touch the record button. You see it becomes light red, right? So now it's armed. It's on. The minute I hit the start button, it's going to start recording. So let's record that progression in there real quick. And it's going to go like this. And notice the bar is counting. And once it gets to 4, it's going to stop. That's it. So, see my hands? So the chord progression is now taking over and it's doing its own thing. That just frees me up. I can now use a full piano. I can go to my piano here, change the voice. Now remember, I did a chord progression or did a chord recording only for scene number 1, which means that if I go to scene number 2 and I hit start, there's no chord progression in scene number 2, right? So again, I'm doing this intentionally to show you how this can be used, right? So this is you building the content, and after this, we're going to show you how to save everything so that when you get, this is what you're doing in your basement or in your house or in your studio. Not on the stage. Everything we've discussed so far is not to be done in front of any audience. I would not permit it. You have not gotten my blessing to do that, okay? This is what you do in your house. You do this when you're at home, when you're setting up the keyboard for your performance. And then we're going to discuss how you get that information out when you're on the stage before your guests, okay? So just a word of advice there. So this is us putting in our stuff. This is us building our different musical elements that we're going to use for a particular song per se. So let's get back to the unit right here. So in scene number 2, I may want to have a different chord progression in there, okay? In scene 1, I did this. I want to maybe have some, maybe I want to put my verse in here. Okay, so let me record that. It's going to be this progression. I'm going to go again. It's 8 bars. No. Maybe, yeah, I want to make it 8 bars long, okay? So I'm going to go back and I'm going to hit the record again. It turns into a lighter red. Again, it's going to start recording as soon as I hit the start button. So let me record the chord progression for this particular scene. It's going to be 8 bars long, and you'll see why. Here we go. So that's now the chord progression that I have in scene 2. So why did I do that? Because when I'm in scene 1, I'm gonna play this. I want to hear this. Scene 1. Switch to scene 2, sorry. That's in scene 2 again. And it's 8 bars, remember? Scene 1. So you get the point, right? So in scene 1, that could be my chorus, right? And in scene 2, that could be my verse or one of my verses, and so on and so forth for all the other scenes. But the beauty about this is that now if I go to pianist mode, the whole piano becomes like a regular piano, and it frees me up to play. So I'm not having to worry about chord progressions anymore. I just simply hit start. Let's go to my verse in scene 2. So you see, by having that automation, it's pretty much taken over the chord progression. And the good thing about this, or the unique thing about this, is that I could quickly disengage that arrangement, right? I can quickly get out of that arrangement. Let's say somebody came on the dance floor and said, hey, go back to the chorus. Or let's say I'm playing with the band and I just decided to go back into the chorus. Well, exactly how is that going to look? Let's take a look and see what we're talking about right here. So with the auto chord on, the chord progression is in the machine. I'm going to go ahead and pick another voice for the sake of this demonstration. Let me pick the trumpet right there. So I can disengage that in real time, turn it off. Bring it back on again. So again, what am I doing? I engage the auto chord when I want to have my hands free to play live, and I disengage. Sorry, and yes, I'm right. I engage the auto chord when I want to play, freestyle, and then I disengage it when I want to take over the machine. But remember, like I told you before, each of these scenes can have their own chord progressions. Each of these scenes can have their own tempos, for example. So maybe in the beginning of the song, I want to start off at a slower tempo at 106, okay? Not sure I want to do that in this particular case, but let's just say, for example, 106. And I want the song to speed up as it goes into scene 2. So 115, right? So if you take a look at the screen right there, what did I do? Look at the tempo. Scene 1, 106. Scene 2, 115. Again, that just shows you how independent the scenes are. And then, of course, I like what I've just done. I like the content the way it is. I've added all the parts I wanted to add. I have, made the scene exactly what I want it to be when I'm playing live on stage. I'm just going to touch the save button, or press the save button on the panel. And when you press the save button, you're now with this particular screen, Save LaunchPad Project. I want to touch Save As, and I'm going to give this a name. I'm just going to call this one AJ number 12. Don't ask me why I picked 12. AJ12, and I'm going to touch Enter. And now AJ12 is displayed on the top left-hand corner in my LaunchPad, right? So I have saved that. So everything we've discussed so far was creating the LaunchPad in terms of the content, in terms of the material. We did the creation. Here we are right now. Turn the keyboard off, pack it up, get to my stage, get to my gig, my place of worship, and now everything comes back on. How do I recall that LaunchPad? How do I recall that project? Well, there are two ways to do that. First way is by going into the LaunchPad environment itself. You press the LaunchPad button right here, okay? When you press the LaunchPad button, you now have this screen. Let's see here. Sorry. Yep, you now have this screen. And now you're able to pick what you want to load. And how do you do that? First of all, you want to go into where it says Open, okay? You're going to touch Open, and it displays all your existing paths. Remember at the beginning of this presentation, we were talking about this particular LSX project files, and we were trying to associate them with your DAW. These are your LaunchPad. These are your projects. So you will now scroll through, and you pick whatever project you loaded. So if, for example, I'm going to pick AJ12, which we just did right now, and I touch Enter or press Enter, well, guess what? It's going to load AJ12, which is everything we discussed for the past 30 minutes of this video. And when I hit Start, it's going to start playing AJ12. When I'm done with that, I want to load another pad. I'm going to simply touch Open, and I'm going to go over, and I'm going to hit whichever pad I want to play. I'm going to press Enter, and I'm going to start playing that part. I hit Start button, in this case. So this is me playing, okay? As you can see, I'm playing this particular project, which has this particular audio tracks, and I'm going to go into scene here. So this is, again, at the show. I'm actually performing right now. When I get done with that, I'm going to touch Open. I'm going to go ahead and turn the wheel. I'm going to load another, let's say, another project I want to work with. In this case, Awana, for an example. I'm going to hit Enter. And it instantly, once you get that beep, you see it loads all the corresponding files that you need for that particular project, for example. So this one will be some, this will sound something like this. And you can notice how fast it takes to load, So now, if I want to go ahead and play along with this, LaunchPad. Man, we can have fun with this all day long, all night long, but we got to get back into business, right? So that is a glimpse of what you can do with your Launchpad. We've discussed only two of those features. We have two more to discuss, but I'm thinking if we should go ahead or contemplating rather, or leave that for another video, or just go through real quick. Because there's certain functions here. For example, you see over here in my scenes, I can copy parts. So let's say I'm building up a scene. I can go to scene 1. I love the content of scene 1. And I can just simply touch copy 2, and I can copy from scene 1 to scene 3 or to scene 4 or scene 5, right? So I can start building up my elements in scene 1, but I don't want to replicate the stuff in scene 2. It's going to take, it's not going to be the same anyway. So I want to copy from scene 1 to scene 2 and then go back in there and embellish scene 2 the way I see fit. So let me take a little bit of a pause here and go through a bunch of questions in here. I know especially someone like John Smiles had actually had, how do I add a track from another similar style in addition to a full style that I already have loaded into the Launchpad? Okay, yes, you mentioned how do I copy all elements from scene 1 to the other. I just mentioned that. So, John, to address some of your questions, scene copying, right? So pretty much, yes, that's going to be on the copy 2 right here. So you have to be in the scene that you want to copy from, okay? So in order to copy to a scene, you have to be in the scene you want to copy from. So let's say I want to copy from scene 2 to scene 4. I have to first of all be in scene 2. In that case, this is all the content of scene 2. And here you can see scene 5 is empty. So let me just demonstrate this for you, right? So I had this in scene 2 right here. Okay, and scene 5 is empty. See how it's grayed out? So let's look at the screen real close. Let's zoom into that screen so people can see exactly what we are talking about. So that's the display right there, right? So scene 5, look at scene 1, how it's white. You have the white text in 1, scene 2, scene 3, and scene 4. But how scene 5 and scene 6 have grayed out text? Because they're empty, okay? If you see above, there's nothing in those scenes. So let's go to scene 1. You have content in there. You have the stuff in there. You go to scene 2, I have content. Let's say I want to copy all my stuff from scene 2 into scene 5, which is empty, right? Scene 5 right now, if I press start, is empty. I go to scene 2. Listen to what scene 2 sounds like. I want to copy this content from scene 2, okay, into scene 5. So what do I do? Well, let's take a look at what I'm doing over here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to go into scene 2, the scene you want to copy from. I'm going to touch copy to right there, and this the display comes up. And now I want to be able to copy to where? I'm going to copy from scene 2 into scene 5. I'm going to touch scene 5. Copy current scene into scene 5. Are you okay with this? I'm going to touch copy. And voila, right there. Scene 5 now turned white, right? Because scene 5 now has content. So when I go back to scene 5, before it was grayed out, now it has this information. Okay, which sounds exactly like that which we had in scene 2. So I just copied from there to there. So I hope that answers your question, right? So there was another question about, okay, how do I bring in style parts? So once I've brought in your style, okay, let's get out of this scene. I'm going to go back and start this from scratch, right? So you're saying, your question, I believe, John, is you have a style. Let's say I want to go into, let me pick ballad. Ballad, 70s pop, right? Okay, I have this, and I want to bring this into my Launchpad. So the first thing you do while this is playing, you press the Launchpad button, and it brings all of this, tells you which one do you want to bring into what. You say, yes, I want to bring all this, touch yes. All that comes over, okay? So now I'm in the Launchpad environment, okay? So I have brought all my style. I've brought all the elements of the 70s pop style into the Launchpad. How do I bring in, let's say, a guitar from chord 1 of another style? Well, this is where you have to do your homework, right? So remember, there's a button here called Import Style, but I have to also know what style I'm importing from, because that style needs to be loaded into the machine. So again, I'm going to get out of Launchpad. I'm going to turn Launchpad off, okay? It was not save, before I do this, cancel. I'm going to save this Launchpad. So this is 70s pop, right? So I'm going to hit save here, and I'm going to save this. I'm going to just call this 70s pop, okay, for this demonstration. So what have I done? All I've done so far is I have gone into 70s pop, the style, the arranger, okay? And I have taken all these style parts of 70s pop, brought into my LaunchPad environment, and I've just saved it. So right now, the style and the LaunchPad are identical. Nothing has changed, okay? Now, to answer your question, I want to bring a track from a different style into that particular work I just did, that project I just did, that LaunchPad. So before I do that, I have to know what style I want to bring the stuff from, right? So in this case, I'm going to turn off the LaunchPad button, and I'm going to go into my style and dig around. Let's say I'm in 16-beat ballad 4. Now you want to bring in some part of this style. I'm going to go into my view screen, and I want to bring in, let's see, I see the dark piano, and I see a chord number 3, right? So I have to know what element I want to bring in here. You guys are taking a look at me, rather than taking a look at the keyboard. Let's go back to the keyboard. So I'm in style view right here, and I want to bring in one of my style parts. So I have to know what it is, and I write it down. I want to bring in chord 1, for example, this dark piano, which is from this particular 16-beat ballad 4. Remember, the 16-beat ballad 4 has to be loaded in. So that's the last style you loaded in before going back into your LaunchPad environment. So I'm going to go back into my LaunchPad environment now, and I'm going to go ahead and open the 70s pop. Well, it's already there. That's the last one I did, right? Right there. And I want to bring in that 16-beat chord 1, the 16-beat style part that we just discussed. So I'm going to go into where it says Style Import over here. Style Import. And remember, the 16-beat ballad 4 was the last style that was loaded. So that's what's in the machine right now. And it's asking me, what do I want to bring in here? Well, based on the example we discussed, I want to bring in chord 1, that chord 1 track, which is right there. I'm going to select it, all right? Let's look at the screen real closely. Let's zoom into that screen, see? So if I don't select it, this is what happened when I came in and put that button right there. Chord 1, selected, okay? Chord 2 or not, I can deselect them, right? So when you click on Style Import, you see it's yellow right there. Now, it's telling you on the top, 16 ballad 4, that's the style that was the last style that was in the machine. That's where it's going to get the parts from. So you have to know the style, and you have to know what element of the style do you want to bring into the LaunchPad. In our case example, it's chord number 1. I want to bring that chord number 1, and it's of arranger A, right? So it can be arranger A, it can be B, it can be the fill. In our case, it's from arranger A. So we're going to bring chord 1 from arranger A into our LaunchPad. I'm going to click on OK, and I just brought it in right there. Okay, so again, I can go in right there, and you can look at that chord 1. That's the piano that I just brought in that piano from my existing style. If I hit start, that's right there. Now, if you notice something very interesting, right? What did you just see right there, what we're doing? To answer John's question, we brought a style. We took out the different style elements, and we brought the style elements of an existing style into our LaunchPad project, into our LaunchPad environment. And then we now can save it as a project file or as a LaunchPad, right? All depends, again, the sky is the limit. What do you want to achieve? What are you trying to do? And that's how you start building your pads, you start building your different parts, okay? So to answer John's 2 questions, how you brought the parts in, we just demonstrated that, and also how do you bring an existing part of an existing style into the machine. The trick is you have to know what style parts you want to bring in advance before you launch your project. So the first scenario, you bring the entire style part into the machine, save it as a LaunchPad. Then go back now, look around for the style that you need, load it in. Okay, the one that you want to get elements of, like chord 1 from arranger A or chord 2 from arranger C. Load that style first, leave it alone. Come back into your LaunchPad environment, load the pad you're working with, and then go to where it says Style Import. And as soon as you touch that button, it's going to go back to the style that you last loaded into the machine, and you select what parts you want to bring in. Now remember that as you're bringing in these parts, you only have really 3 empty tracks to work with. So you can only bring in 3 more tracks, and then this becomes full. Now you have to move into scene 2, and you bring in 3 more, and scene 3, and you bring in 3 more, because you brought all the other tracks from the first style that you were working with. So I hope that answers John's question. Let's see, do we have any more questions? How many measures can a single LaunchPad screen take? 64. So if I go into a single scene, scene 1, and I go here, the maximum number is 64, okay? So if you look at the screen right there, I can actually go as high as 64. So really, I can build an entire song in just one scene, right? I mean, technically, if you think about it. Because right here, scene 1, I have 64 bars, okay? Scene 2, I can also go up as high as 64. That's a lot of bars and a lot of chord changes and progressions to work with within a 64 measure loop, right? So it's a lot. It's a lot. It's very humongous or gigantic, I guess is the word I'm looking for in this case. All right. So let's go back to where it was. 8. Let's see. What other questions we have? The wave. We answered that already. Can you import a Midi song into the LaunchPad? Lazar. Yes. Midi song. Can you import? Yes, you can. So let me give you an example of that. So we have this case here, for example. I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to go into this case, all right? Use John's example. I have this part. Now, let me start with a clean slate. Clean slate, MIDI. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go to new. Do you want to proceed? Yes, right? So how do I bring a MIDI file part in here? You have to have the file already saved in the user location of the pad, right? So I'm going to go to pad number 1. Of here, and it's going to go into edit mode, and it asks me here, what do I want to bring in? I'm going to go to user. That's where I have all my MIDI files in the user folder. As you can see, I have some stuff here that I've been working with behind the scenes, Michael Jackson, Billie Jean, and everything else. So I can't play everything because of the whole copyright in YouTube and Facebook taking stuff down, but I'm going to plead with them again that this is just for demonstration purposes only, and so please do not take down these tracks, okay? So we're not going to play the whole thing. But let's just say Samba, for example, the first one right there, okay? Hit enter. Let's see, did I do this correctly? No, I did not. Did not. Let's go in. I have to load it. Baseline. No. EDM. I'm looking for. Let's see. I wish I knew. There we go. Okay. So in here, for example, I just loaded bass track. Or let's see. Let me do this the right way. Let me do this the right way. I'm trying to show you something. I'm trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Okay, so I'm going to go, all right, let me say I'm going to go with the first here. I'm going to load another MIDI track here. User. 1, I wish. So you have to load the tracks. Okay, this is the second one. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to load warm bass. No, I don't want to do that. I want to get out of that. I want to go in here. I want to go into that track, edit the pad, go into user to number 3. So right now I'm loading the different tracks of the MIDI file, right? So I'm going to go back into user. The third track I just did, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to go to track number 5. It's again, it's under user. And so the question was using MIDI files within the LaunchPad. So I just loaded 5 tracks right there, okay? So now this is what it sounds like, just so you know. Okay, let's go here. So this is a MIDI file, okay? And Lazar just asked a very, very good question indeed. So that's a MIDI file, right? So we have 5 tracks in that particular song. We just loaded a MIDI file into the LaunchPad into scene number 1. Now, this is where things get to be a little bit more interesting because now I have this MIDI file in here. I can really, really enhance the MIDI file and make it sound way better than what it was before, okay? Which takes us into our third part of the LaunchPad, which I wasn't going to touch, but since the question came up, let's go ahead and deal with it. So I have a MIDI file. How do I enhance that MIDI file in my LaunchPad? How do I make that MIDI file sound better? So in this case, I had this particular MIDI file, and I had loaded the tracks in here. Now, if you notice, I mean, it sounds good. It's not a bad MIDI file, but I want to make it more, how do I say this? I want to add more oomph, I want to add more soul to this song. I want to make this song speak out so that you guys can actually feel like dancing in your seats, right? So how would I do that? Well, let's get back in here and see how we can do that. So I can now use the LaunchPad to enhance a MIDI file. I have this MIDI file in here. The first thing I noticed is that the drums were not sounding punchy enough. So I want to add live drums. And there are many ways you can do this. Even in the MIDI file player, there's another way that we can do this as well. I'm going to discuss that before we close the show, right? Or before we close the tutorial, the workshop. But I want to add live drums to this MIDI file. So I have all these empty tracks here, right? I'm going to pick any of them, right? The next one, edit. I want to add audio drums. I'm going to touch audio drums. And now I'm thinking, that I feel. It's going to be like a funk. I'm going to go into the funk category, like an R&B, rhythm and blues number 2. Let's try and see how those drums sound. Feel, na, 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 na. Oh, yes. Haha. Come on now. Here we go. So that sounds cool, but I do not want to have 2 drummers playing at the same time, right? So remember that I have the first drummer that was playing before. If I turn this one off, okay, this is the drummer that was, the drum track that was playing before. Let's see if we can locate it. Right there. Okay. So I don't want to have 2 drummers playing together. So this is the first drummer, original MIDI file drummer. And this is my live drummer. And guess what? With the live drummer, I can put drum fills and breaks and variations. I can now play it as if I'm playing the style. Here we go. Variation B. Fill. C. Break. Fill. Back to variation B. Again, this is a MIDI file. Okay, I'm just answering Lazar's question. This is a MIDI file, and we're enhancing this MIDI file within the LaunchPad environment. So now, if you notice, there's a trick here. Well, not a trick, but again, like I was saying, I don't want to have 2 drummers playing together. But when I load this at my gig, I don't want to have to go back and forth and turn the first drummer off and the other one on and this one off and this one on. So I have a very nice function on the LaunchPad I'm going to talk to you about right now. So let's get in deeper into the screen so we can see exactly what AJ is talking about. I got these 2 pads right here, and I want them to be mutually exclusive of one another, right? So in other words, I want that when one is on, the other one should be off. And when one is on, the other one should be off, because I don't want to have 2 drummers. So what do? I can go in here, I can touch the first one, which is the track number 2, and hold it for 2 seconds. And you now see where it says Edit Pad. I'm going to touch Edit Pad. And when I do that, I'm going to go to Pad Control, the top right-hand corner there. It says Pad Control. Pad Control, in that Pad Control, remember we have pad number 2 in edit mode. I want that when pad number 2 is on, pad number 6, which is a live drummer, should be off. So I'm going to touch number 6 there and make sure that is off. Okay? And I'm going to do the same thing for pad number 6. I'm going to touch and hold pad number 6 for 2 seconds, and I'm going to go into Edit Pad and Pad Control and say, hey, listen, for pad number 6, I want to turn off pad number 2. So what that means is when pad number 2 is on, pad number 6 will be off. I hope I didn't lose you guys so far, right? So I have 2 drum tracks I brought a MIDI file into my LaunchPad. The MIDI file came with the drum, the bass, guitar, the sax, and what have you. I want to add a live drum to my MIDI file to spice it up, at least the drum part, right? But now I have 2 drummers playing together, which is not good. I can manually turn on one drummer and turn off the other one, or I can choose to automate it, which I just did right now with the pad control. So I programmed the pad such that when this particular pad is on with the live drums, it turns off automatically the MIDI drum pad. And when the MIDI drum pad is on, it turns off the audio drum pad, which is pad 2 and pad 6, right? So let's see how this is going to work in practicality. So I'm going to start off with the MIDI drum track. So if I press start, you notice the first 4 bars of the song, there was nothing in there. Let's get back into the screen so you can see what I'm talking about, right? So right now, this drum is off. This is the MIDI track that's playing right now. MIDI track is playing, okay? Watch what happens when I touch pad number 6. You're gonna see pad number 2 will go off by itself automatically right now. And that's my live drummer. See what I did? So now, the live drum is playing, but it turned off the MIDI drum. Now, there may be some parts in the song where the MIDI drum is playing something that's exclusive to that song, and I want to go back to that MIDI drum, right? So in this case, if I touch the MIDI drum track, which is number 2, pad number 6 will go off right now. So I'm going to go and show you guys the screen so you can see what I'm doing in real time. See, just by touching the pad. So the 2 and 6 are programmed to work against each other, if you know what I'm saying. So that's the MIDI. Here we go, audio. And the good thing in the audio is I can now trigger the fills and the breaks. Here we go, break, D. And it's funny because these control everything. That's my bass track of the MIDI file. That's my drum. This is my other track. Okay? I'm controlling them in real time. Now, just to spice this up, I can get naughty and say, hey, let's add a vocal track in there. Go to edit, go to wave, and I'm gonna pick something, let's see, chill jazz. I'm just gonna pick something, it may not even work, but again, I wanna just show you how in real time, I can be able to enhance and add parts to my track as I'm performing. Let's see, what has a live drum in here? Not a live drum, sorry, I'm looking for a vocal track. That's the effects, I want a vocal track,
You make me feel so good. You make me feel so good. You make me feel so good.
Oh, really? I do?
You make me feel so good.
Oh, thank you. I know, I make you feel good. I make everybody feel good, right? So, anyway, you guys get the point. That's the whole idea of being able to interact. We were just answering Lazar's question of being able to take a MIDI file, bring that into a LaunchPad environment, which answered this question, but we went further ahead to see how we can enhance that MIDI file to make that MIDI file sound so good.
You make me feel so good.
I know. Don't say that too many times now. They're going to get jealous. So let's see. What are the questions we have? Let's go into our Facebook environment and see what the people are saying on Facebook. Facebook. Let's see. No delay. Beach, California. Polish. Okay, good. Polka. Somebody's looking for some polka stuff. All right. We will try and do some polka stuff down the road here. Look, I know people have asked for polkas and, accordions, and they want to hear the accordion sounds and all that stuff as well. Sylvanus, hey, good afternoon to you too. Greetings to everybody. Good day, team. Yes, so today is just about talking about the functionality stuff, right? We're not really playing many songs. I'm talking to the folks on National Telegraph Africa. We're just showing how you can use this machine in the studio, how you can use it live, and there's a particular topic that was bothering some people, the LaunchPad, which is a very deep topic, as you can see. We spent over an hour and 30 minutes, and we haven't even finished the LaunchPad yet, but I'm going to leave the second part of this for the show next week, and next week we will have the show where we have the ladies here, singing along, and we're going to use the LaunchPad, so you can actually see how the LaunchPad today was to demonstrate what it can do. Now, next week or next Friday, we're going to have the ladies over, and I'm going to show you how I can use those pads in real time. They're the ones who do the singing. I kind of stay away from the singing when I can. But this gives you an idea of the power, of the strength of the SD90 LaunchPad future, right? So just even here, with what we just did right now with those MIDI files, right, Lazar, to continue answering your question. This takes me now back to the other part of the discussion we're going to talk about today, very, very briefly, for the most part. And this has to do with the MIDI file. So you saw what I did here with this MIDI file here and enhancing it. Now, to some, that may be a little bit complicated. It may be too deep. So what is a quick way to enhance a MIDI file? I'm not going to save the LaunchPad. I'm going to get out of this environment. I'm going to go back. Do you want to save? You want to exit? Yes, I want to exit. So let's go into a MIDI file and see how I can make this work. Use a famous example or a famous tune. So let's go back here. I'm going to take you guys back into the top of the screen so we can see exactly what is happening over here. Okay. There we go. Oh, no, I have the different camera over there. Okay, well. So we're going to take you guys to this camera over here, which is over the screen, so we can see exactly what's happening with regards to the MIDI files. Okay, here we go. So now on the top of the keyboard, I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go to my player right there. Okay, and I'm going to go into my MIDI folder here, and I have some MIDI songs: Michael Jackson, Frank Sinatra, B.B. King. I'm just going to go into Michael Jackson real quick, and I'm going to pick, let's see, Black or White, Billie Jean, Beat It, Bass, Smooth Criminal, The Way You Make Me Feel. Let's see which one I want to pick. I Just Can't Stop Loving You. That's a nice one, too. Beat it, beat it, beat it. Let's go with Billie Jean, all right? Okay, you can see this one actually has lyrics as well, too. So, let me see. Let's see if I go black and white. Okay, I'll go with this one, Black or White, right? Okay, so we have this song, Black or White. If I hit start, that's the MIDI file right there. If I turn off the lyrics, I can get back to my normal screen to see what I'm doing. So that's the drum that came with that particular MIDI file. How do I enhance that in the MIDI file environment? So function here is called Drum Restyle, okay? So I can play that while that song is playing. I can go to Drum Restyle, and I can pick what style I want to use the drum parts for. I'm going to go to dance category, and I'm going to pick, let's say, Disco 1. Now remind you, I'm in the style environment, so I can use the fill and the breaks. And this is the live drum now playing with the MIDI file, okay? Fill, here we go. Arranger C. And at any time I can go back to the original MIDI drum by going back on and off right there. So you see where it says edit, restyle, on and off. If I go here to the on and off, I'm back to the MIDI file drum. That's the MIDI file drum. And I'm going to go now to the live drum. I'm going to do a real drum fill, variation D. And let's say I'm playing for a Latin crowd, and I want to change this into a Latin beat, for example. I'm going to go to my Latin category, and I'm going to go to my Brazilian, let's see, samba. So you can see I can change the song, spice it up a little bit. I want to go back to the original MIDI drum. Here we go. That's the original MIDI drum. Okay. Now I'm going to go back into my Latin flavor, my Brazilian friends with the samba. Here we go. Here we go. So again, it's almost like I became a DJ overnight, right? So everything I just did on the keyboard, I can actually save that. So remember, this is a MIDI file, right? So if I decide to, I can now say, listen, I want to save this song remix. If I hit save, I can now decide to save this MIDI file, black or white, and I'm going to put a number 4 in there. I don't want to erase my original MIDI file, right? I'm going to put a 4 just to distinguish this one. Well, let me do this properly then. I'm going to say black or white, and I'm going to put live drum, right? Live drum. So now, this particular MIDI file is the version that has the live drum associated with it, okay? So if I take this out and give to somebody else who has a Ketron SD9, SD90, or SD60, all they have to do is put in the machine, and everything I did here, the mixing, the drums, the styles, and everything else, will also be replicated on their machine, right? So again, let's go back to this screen where we can see the screen. If I play the original black and white MIDI file, this is right there. Okay. If I stop that and I play the black and white with the live drums, right there. So all I'm doing is just playing the MIDI file, see? So what I did with the live drums and everything is all coming out in real time. I mean, you can feel it. Feel. Na, 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 na. So I'm adding more feeling to the music. I'm adding more soul to the music. And this is a very, very powerful feature, drum restyle, which you can do in the MIDI environment. Or if you want to get in deeper, take the MIDI file and put it in the LaunchPad environment and break everything down and spice everything up there too, okay? So I hope this has been a, well, brief, yeah, right. Brief presentation with regards to the LaunchPad. I was going to focus this particular video exclusively on the LaunchPad feature, as you can see below your screen. So for anybody looking for more information with regards to Ketron products, especially here in the United States, just look below your screen there and you can give us a ring or you can send us an email and we will be glad to help you either to service your existing equipment or to provide you with the equipment you need. Again, we pride ourselves on good services, something that's very, very rare in the world today. But unfortunately, that is life. For those of you who are overseas, I know that there are many of you who have reached out to us, and we've been able to help you also in one way or another. We hope that these tutorials that we've indulged in will be able to help more users not only expose the brand, number one, but number two, those of you who already have this instrument, you know, bring in your questions and let's see how we can actually answer them online, because sometimes, well, not sometimes, many times the manual does not do the product justice. We also have a rewritten manual for Ketron products. So if you actually were to go to our website, let's see if I can bring that up real quick. You can actually go there and be able to download the manual, and you can also scroll around for, you know, why AjamSonic. You know, what is so special about this particular company which is working with Ketron, and what do we do that is different? Everything is going to be there for you. You can actually go through yourself, and you can have some fun and scroll through and get all that information on the website. Now, also one of the best things out there right now are the gold packages, especially for those of you who are in the United States or in the Caribbean island or Africa. If you're looking for content, you're looking for rhythms that suit your kind of music, being as though the Ketron brand is the European brand, we have content for the United States that goes from country, you know, authentic country with walking bass lines. We have like Zouk from the Caribbean islands, Martinique, Guadeloupe. We have R&B, funk, again from America, reggae, what have you, swing and jazz. These are all available to you on the website. And all you have to do is you can identify which of the gold packages you want, and you can also have demonstrations, or you also have demonstrations there of some of the styles. There's so many styles, it's not, you know, physically possible to demonstrate all of them. Now, the country package is on the bottom. Again, we actually gave it its own page. So if you click on check out these new styles. This will take you to the country page. A lot of people in the United States are still playing country music, and so we felt as though we should give it its own page due to the style content and the material. And this gives you a breakdown of the styles that are coming in with this particular all-American country styles, okay? So that's all available to you on the website, www.ajamsonic.com. Now, if you go to the Ketron America site, okay, which is also our website, it even gives you more and more information as well there with regards to the general products that we have with regards to Ketron America. And the good thing about this site is if you go here to compare products, and this has been a question that people have been asking all over the world, what is the difference between your modules or between your keyboards? We have a very, very comprehensive list here. If you click on compare products, it'll take you to this page, and you can pretty much go through all our products. So what we did on the top is we actually listed the modules, because we have modules and we have the equivalent keyboards. So for an example, in SD3, the first column tells you, the first row, keyboard version. So the keyboard version of the SD3 is called the SD5 or the SD8 if you're playing the chromatic keyboard. The keyboard version of the Audio 4 is the Audio 5 or the Audio Standard. And the SD90 will be right about there. So this and the SD1000, there is no keyboard version of that, right? And then it gets into all this detail, 6 pages long. So this is, I would suggest, a very, very highly recommended page for our users to before even calling us, go through this list, because it tells you what is the difference and what product does that the other one does not do. And then, of course, when you now give us a ring, we can then discuss your needs. Again, your needs, not ours. Not ours to sell, your needs that we would like to fulfill with regards to the Ketron products, okay? So let's see now. Do we have any more questions? Let's go on to the Facebook page and see if we have anything again on Facebook. You know, most of the time, the guys on Facebook are the ones who are... the polka. Okay, I'm going to do 1 or 2 polka rhythms before we... Actually, I'm going to close the show with the polka rhythm, okay? Let's go into YouTube. YouTube. Anything coming in of YouTube? YouTube. Let's see. We're now at 1 hour and 44 minutes, so I think people are exhausted, are trying to absorb the material from the LaunchPad. So without much ado, then I'm going to say good evening, good afternoon, probably. I don't think anybody's good morning at this point in time, or good night from Ketron USA. I'm going to leave you with this polka. Somebody was asking for a polka. Let's see if I can find that polka rhythm. So I'm going to go into my style category, okay? And let's see where the polka is going to reside. Get out of the player, go into my style category, and polka should be somewhere under the... let's see, under the swing category, I think, or under the folk. Let's see, I've got the march, the waltzes, the tangos, and we may not have a factory. If not, I can actually bring up one of the AjamSonic styles, and I think we'll have them in there. Let me get into swing, and I'm looking again. This is what you do at home. You find everything, set everything up, and then you go on stage and just load your setup, which is under registrations. Aha, which brings me to one thing. We spoke about LaunchPads. Your LaunchPads can also be stored, okay? We also be saved as a registration, so that when you get on stage, you're just simply recalling a registration, and that registration will automatically load the corresponding pad. So if anybody has any questions about that, you can give us a ring or send us an email or a text, and we can show you or guide you how to get by doing that. It's pretty simple. Once you have your LaunchPad set up, you just go into registration and hit save, and then you give it a name. That way you have everything in one spot or in one place that you can actually use for your performance, okay? So without much ado, somebody requested a polka. So let's see if we can actually have a polka beat here and see what we can come up with in the polka. Now I know that polkas are usually heavy on the accordion, so I'm going to pick let's see, French musette. This should be interesting. thing, if you notice, okay, again, when you're playing an instrument on a keyboard, you have to think the way the instrumentist would think, right? So I'm thinking now like an accordion player. What do they have that we don't have? They got the bellows, right? They got the shake. And with the shake that they have on the accordion, remember it's being done by a human being. So every shake is different, right? So you're trying to replicate that on this versus that's more realistic, right? If you're playing keyboard, you're not doing that. You're doing something that sounds more like that. But hey, what if I had a style that actually has that shake built in, right? So in that case, I'm gonna save myself the headache. Save myself the headache from having to do the shaking. I mean, come on, we don't have accordions, we got keyboards. So the accordion players are doing this, keyboard players were doing that. But we're trying to replicate but I have it in that style, particularly in that AjamSonic style. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it with this one. Make it louder. And that's it, folks. So thank you all for coming out today. Again, next Friday, tune in at 1 o'clock. We're going to have the ladies over here, and we're going to be doing some singing at this time. But we're going to be talking about how we're using the LaunchPad features or the Midi features and the features of the keyboard to be able to perform live as you do at a live performance. So without much ado, again, this is AJ saying thank you all for coming out today. Thank you for spending your Friday, especially being as though it's the weekend, a very, very hot weekend here in the United States. And I mean hot with a small h and hot with a capital H as well. So just make sure that those of you who are out there, you are safe and you are driving carefully. Try and stay indoors if you can. And we're looking forward to seeing you all next Friday right here at the studio. So thank you all for tuning in. It's been a pleasure, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Take care now.